Our next presenter coming in is Pat Trutman. Trutman from Rural Mutual Insurance, going to be talking about insurance needs of a sugarbush and some of those kinds of things. Pat is a Wisconsin insurance agent in Green Bay, Wisconsin, in the Green Bay, Wisconsin area at Rural Mutual Insurance. I better say it right. He has been a Rural Mutual agent since 1990, Farm Bureau agent for 31 years. He works with all different aspects of insurance needs. He works with protecting the things that are the most important to you, your home, your family, farm, your future. He looks forward to showing you how simple insurance can be. So with that, we'll let you take over, Pat, and feel free to go as long as you need to. We always seem to add a little time. So if you don't feel pushed for time if you get to the end. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate the time. Unfortunately, I'm on after lunch, which is generally going to put everybody to sleep, and I'm okay with that. The subject matter that Teresa asked me to chat with everybody about today was this crazy thing called liability. If anybody has any questions throughout our chat here, by all means, bring them up. This crazy world we live in and the world of liability for your operations can take us down so many different avenues. I'd rather just be able to address what's important to anybody in particular. There are so many variables to the liability that's requested by companies you're dealing with or what you need on your day-to-day operations that we can address it and go down whatever avenue you feel would be important for you. I did a little research this morning. I just went online and punched in the word liability, and there's like 1.7 million different definitions of the word. I came up with one that seems to be the best. It's the legal responsibility for one's accounts or emissions, basically stating the liability that you are looking for is you want one that's going to be covering your actions or your omissions. Now, that can go so many different directions, but we'll try to keep it as basic as we can. And keep it a little bit more defined or refined for what you're doing in your day-to-day production, from the extent of having people on your property to marketing your product into the retail world. Each one of those carries a real specific and real refined area of which you want to make sure that your plan covers. And I don't care if you market 1 gallon a year, if you're marketing 150,000 gallons a year, the basis is all the same. The courts love to have field days with liability insurance on clients. It's probably the worst scenario one operator could go through, short of a disastrous fire or anything. This can wear on you as a person, you as a family, on your relationship with your spouse. It can tear families apart. It can tear operations apart if not put together properly and if not explained by your whatever representative you're working with. There's a lot of good companies out there that do a really good job keeping you covered as a business owner and as a farm operator, as a person who's marketing a product. So by all means, have this conversation with whoever you feel comfortable with, whether it be your insurance agent, an insurance professional, your legal people that you work with. Have the conversation before something happens is the biggest piece of advice I can give anybody today. Liability basically means you're protecting your actions from hurting someone or someone else's property. So that being said, um, that can go as far as the product that you're offering, that can go to the operation for which you're inviting the general public to stop by your place to buy your product. It can be letting the general public participate in your operation and not doing it on a prudent way to not allow that person to become hurt, disabled, you know, some type of damage to them as a person or their property. Um, the liability end for the for your product that you're going to want to be sure that you have if you're marketing to a retail, wholesale, or direct market through your operation at home is being sure that the product that you're selling is carrying a coverage that will allow some type of an alteration of that product to be covered through your insurance. Any type of um, what would you call it? Any type of um, contamination to that product that could damage someone, you want to make sure that's covered through your insurance program. Um, it could be tainted product. It can be someone, putting something into your product, a disgruntled employee, if you have employees doing things of that nature. Um, in the time that I've been in this business, I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of it, and it's detrimental. It can take a person's operation down to nothing. So, by all means, have the discussion with your insurance person or your legal advisors as far as making sure that the product that you're offering John Q. Public, if something is tainted, something's wrong, something's contaminated, a shard of glass, whatever it might be, would be covered through your insurance program to whatever limit you decide to purchase from your insurance company. The funny thing about liability insurance is it's nothing but a sheet of paper with a number on it, and you're paying me, myself, the company I represent, the insurance company itself, a certain amount. So basically, you're getting a sheet of paper with a promise on it that says, if you pay me, I will make sure that if you hurt someone or do damage to the property, I will give him XYZ amount of money if the court deems you as the operator responsible. A lot of people, and it's a huge misconception, think that insurance companies, when they see a liability suit, are just going to roll over, play dead, and say, just tell me who to write the check out. That's probably as far from the truth as it could be. If you, for example, are carrying $1 million liability insurance policy, and your insurance company is at risk of writing out a check to somebody for $1 million, I will guarantee you they're going to fight, scrap, do whatever it's going to take to not write that check. They have a prudent obligation to pay for the damages, but they're going to do their best job for you as the client to, number one, defend you, and number two, not pay out that huge amount of money out of their pocket. Because that $1 million worth of coverage that you're paying for, the premium that you're paying for that $1 million is pretty minute if they're going to write a check for the $1 million. And I'm just using million as a generic number. A lot of people don't understand that when you do purchase liability insurance from a company, the amount that you're being insured for is actually just used for the payout. For example, you want to carry $1 million liability policy. The $1 million is there strictly to pay out for bodily injury damages or property damages to a client that brought suit against you. What's behind the scenes of that $1 million is all the defense costs, all of the litigation costs, all of the professional affidavits that we have to take, all the jury costs, all the court costs, all the investigation costs that are going to go into the case to defend you are not being taken out of that $1 million settlement that you're paying money for. All of the stuff that I just talked about is behind the scenes and in addition to coverages. Now, the misconception of a lot of people is that, you hear that an insurance company was just going to say, well, the bill was only $10,000. We're just going to write a check out for $10,000 and make the person sign off that they're okay and just make it go away. And a lot of clients get upset about that because they think, well, why didn't you defend me? Why didn't you go after this person? Why didn't you do whatever it's going to take to not pay that person at all? The very unfortunate reason that this happens is because the initial cost to start up a liability claim, whether it's $10,000, $5,000, or $2 million, the minimum that it costs us as a company, and it's pretty much industry wide, is about $7,700. That's to retain the legal staff, start the investigation, and put the wheels in motion just to defend you. So now, does a person pay the $7,700 and go through all these actions, or do they just reach a settlement number and say, okay, for XYZ dollars, this person will sign off and go away? It's unfortunate and it's frustrating for the client. It's frustrating for myself as an agent, but it's also reality. Nobody works for nothing. And legal staff, legal departments, when they start charging upwards of $350 to $500 per hour, it doesn't take long to exhaust the $7,700 retainer that we've got to pay to start these defense costs. So that's a common misnomer among people that get a little bit frustrated with us as agents, us as insurance companies, that just say, well, you just paid them just to walk away. Well, yes and no. So on that note, the other type of situation that we've been running into lately for you as a producer, and if you're signing obligation contracts with retailers, wholesalers, or whatever it might be careful of what they're starting to put into those contracts if you are signing a contract with them. If they're stating that you will cover any type of business interruption on their part due to COVID, every insurance policy that I've run into so far has a virus and bacteria exclusion. So if you think that just because your operation is interrupted, or the operation that you're servicing or obligated to apply product to is shut down due to COVID, don't look back at your insurance companies on a liability and to try to absorb, business loss, business interruption, things in that order, because there is a real specific, what they call a virus exclusion under the liability end of your policies. So we've been running into that a lot. The other thing I can caution you about is under a lot of the larger retail contracts that some people are signing, there is a contractual liability to provide a product to them, whether it be 5,000 gallons, 10,000 gallons, whatever it might be. And that if you do not fulfill that contract with them, they're saying that you can turn it into your insurance company under what's called a contractual liability clause. Please be sure that the contract that you do have with your insurance company does have that in it. It'll protect you if you cannot fulfill a contract due to, sometimes it'll be weather conditions, sometimes it'll be a breakdown of your operation. There again, it will not cover any interruption due to bacterial or virus such as the COVID thing that's going around. So be careful of any contracts that you're signing. If you do have those copies of those contracts, give them to your insurance person to make sure that what the companies are requesting you're covered for, so that you don't leave a gap out there. The last thing I want to do is see somebody have a gap, whether it be in their product recall if something would happen, or in their supply chain where they cannot supply, and all of a sudden this company is saying we still want our money. You know, you're going to pay the gap of our retail sales, even though we didn't have your product to sell and they had to go somewhere else. So that's just a couple of FYIs on that end. For those operations that have a lot of traffic flow into your operations, please try to identify any hazards that would cause a liability situation, whether it's a slip and fall, which are the most common in the world, um, whether it be ice, whether it be slippery, whether it be potholes in a parking lot. Um, just be aware of what's out there. And unfortunately, the John Q public nowadays is looking for a reason to make a free bit of money, and some people just don't care how they get it. And that's unfortunate, because that's what's driving your cost, my cost, everybody's cost of insurance up. So it's not necessarily the cost of rebuilding your building due to wind damage is caused by the obligation that we have to there go back to investigate and defend you in the situation. So a couple other things to watch for in your insurance policies. Um, Fire legal liability is uh, a new buzzword that's coming up. For anybody that's working or selling their product, whether it's farm market, kiosk in a mall, anything in that order, um, the malls, the management companies, the people that are watching, that are putting these events on, are going to ask you for what's called a certificate of insurance. And it's a very common thing. They're starting to put a lot of verbiage into these um, certificate of insurance requests that are just, frankly, for a better word, they're crazy. They want you to do just about everything from cleaning the toilets to sanding the sidewalks, even though you're doing your event in July. So read through them, be careful with them, let your insurance person, or if you're working with somebody legally, run it by them if something doesn't seem right. We're seeing a lot of it lately. Um, and basically, it's people wanting to pass the buck on to whoever they can, so that they aren't legally liable for something that might happen. Or they want you to participate in the liability of their event. So if there's 40 vendors there and you're all selling product, and somebody gets hurt at a kiosk 20 people down, there's, depending on the verbiage of what their contracts are reading, they might want you to participate in the settlement of that or the defense of that. So be aware of it, be conscious of it. Um, the other big buzzword has been product withdrawal, and that is if you do have something in your product that causes you to pull it back off of somebody's shelves, there is a way to cover that expense depending on at what level you're at with your marketing. It's based on the amount of sales that you do every year. So that is an option for anybody doing quite a bit of marketing out there. Um, the newest one that's come up also in the last couple of years is this pollution. Um, and if you have a neighbor that sees that your sap is running and all of a sudden you have a sap spill, um, I've only seen one so far. I It was fraudulent based on what the disgruntled neighbor had called the DNR about. But there again, we had to send people out, do the investigation for the client. due to the fact that he did have the coverage. Um, there again, our cost on that was probably $5,000 to $6,000 to simply clean a small area up where there was a spill. And even though it's a natural sap product, the DNR said it had to be cleaned up. So we did run into that situation once. Um, Hopefully, noting the general consensus of the whole industry doesn't get that far. It's not manure like the dairies. It's not a product that's going to taint wells or damage anybody else. But as as close as as we see this urban sprawl and these people moving out, they don't understand, number one, what you're doing, and number two, what it entails. And the best thing we can do is educate them and allow them to come on and actually see what goes on. And I think that curtails a lot of this stuff. I think we had more of a disgruntled uh, neighbor relationship more than anything. So, um, anybody, any questions? All right. Um, I have nothing. I cannot hear a word. Well, in the meantime, if everybody can still hear me, I've got a couple other topics that people have been talking about lately. The
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. You bet. Are you there?
Can you hear me, Pat?
You betcha. Now I can.
Good. We had a technical issue there for a second. We do have a couple of questions here. If it'd be all right, we'll read those to you. You can answer them, and then if you've got some more to talk about, we'll give you a shot for that too.
Not a problem. Bring it on.
The first question: we process in a separated garage. We had issues getting insurance at first because it was on our primary residence. We were told we should show more history of sales before getting insurance. So I don't know if you've got some comments on that situation.
That is, boy, I could step on my foot a little bit here, but that's okay. I'll take a chance at it. Generally speaking, insurance companies want to see experience in order to provide insurance coverage for a producer. And it's no different than a dairyman, a hog raiser, a cash crop, or whatever it might be. But there is ways to get you covered. There's no reason not to cover you. Unfortunately, being new and being that you're putting out a consumer driven product, it's probably going to cost you a little bit more than somebody that's been in the business for 20 years. But by all means, not an issue as far as getting you coverage. Um, Keep looking if you're in an area where you need some help finding a qualified person, I'll be glad to assist you.
Okay, thank you. Next question. We were told that processing at our home, we had to insure our facility both on our homeowners and other separate insurance policy because we were conducting business out of the building.
That's a company that's driven by individual companies. I can tell you that the one that I rep for, being that we are a farm-based company, that we want the operation, if it's done on the same premises, under the same package, because number one, we don't have to charge you twice for liability of that premises. And number two, we don't have to worry about, in a situation of a claim, let's use a fire as an example. having everything lumped into one package, you'll only have one deductible to pay at a claim situation. So there's a lot of advantages of keeping the home and the operation under one package. Yes.
How much should a person expect to pay annually for a liability insurance plan if they're selling less than $5,000 worth of syrup a year?
Oh, a lot goes into that. If it's strictly based on the sales of the syrup, if you're less than 5,000 bucks a year, two factors. Number one, how high of a liability limit do you want to carry? Whether it be 100, 300, 500, or a million, let's just say. That's going to determine cost. Um, that's the primary reason or the primary driver of the cost. Couple $100 a year should get you somewhere in that 500,000 range at 5,000 a year on sales. Couple
Okay,
of
thank you,
factors
Pat.
that go into that
We
one.
have another question. We
Sure.
have been providing these signs, and I don't know if you can see that on your monitor, Pat, but it's just this,
Yep.
if you come on our
Big tourism.
property, we're not liable if you fall down kind of a thing. And we were told several years ago that this was something that anybody that's having an open house or an event should have. And we get a lot of controversy amongst members, is this thing really do any good? Is it worth having? Is it important? Do you have any comments on that?
Well, I'm going to give you a kind of a biased opinion on it because I was on board with the company that I rep for in developing that sign, which was also taken to the state and it's been tried in court. I'm aware of 4 times, and it has held up every one. So there's the big thing with this agritourism thing, with the egg tours, with the dairies on the breakfast on the farms. Um, Anytime that people are bringing someone on their property to educate or to let them tour or whatever it might be, I really, really, really highly suggest having that out there. Yes. People thought that it was going to open themselves up to more of a liability situation, but fortunately, we've seen just the opposite as a company.
Oh, great. And for those listening, we do have these signs available. There's not a lot of them left right now. They're a good metal sign that's made to be outside. For members, they're $75 a piece. Non-members, I think they're closer to $100. And we are considering ordering some more soon. So if it's something you're interested in having for your own protection at your properties, let us know. We'll include you in that order. And if you're a dealer and wants to sell these signs or stock them at your place to have them for sale for people, let Teresa know that as well. I don't think we have any more questions that have come through on our end. Do you have anything else, Pat, you'd like to talk about?
Somebody bring something up? Is that what I heard?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I have just one quick point yet. Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, all right. The other thing that's been a tough call in the liability world is this cyber. Everybody's got the new word cyber in their vocabulary. If you're accepting credit cards on your operation, or you're doing anything that has anybody's personal information to it, please do whatever you can to secure that or destroy it as soon as you can. Cyber has been a real thing lately, where if you have somebody's credit card on file or you used it and it gets into the wrong hands some way, and this person will come back after you, it costs about 20 to 25,000 bucks nowadays to rebuild somebody's credit. It was as low as 10, it can go as high as 50. So just be real conscious if you're taking somebody's personal information as far as credit card, checks. I don't believe you're doing any much with social security numbers, but anything on note order, just be real cognizant and real aware when you're handling somebody's cards or taking anybody's credit card information. And you do have the option of having coverage under insurance policies for that. So, I just saw a question.
All right.
come in
Thank you
about-
very much. Oh, there is another question that just popped in. Can you move
Sure.
the window? The question is there a simple waiver that could be filled out to cover your business against injury or slips, trips, falls, or anything like that on a tour?
Having that agritourism ordinance sign up there is great. Having anybody sign a waiver is always good. Anything with a signature on always holds some sort of weight in the court system. And there again, I'm by no means a lawyer, but it seems like no matter what we do, it all depends on how good a lawyer you're going to get. Is what's going to determine the outcome of any type of liability suit.